Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're doing a deep dive on something you, the listeners, flagged as really important.
That's right.
It's the connection between physical health, sleep, and happiness.
Mm.
It's something that's so easy to overlook in our busy lives.
Yeah,
But the source material you provided really dives into how these three elements work together.
it does.
And so today, we're going to extract the most fascinating points for you.
Okay.
It just seems like modern life makes it easy to forget that how we feel physically has a huge impact on our mental
Yeah.
state and vice versa.
Absolutely. What's so interesting is this concept of a vicious cycle that the research highlights.
Oh.
It's this idea that neglecting your physical health can lead to poor sleep,
Uh-huh.
which then makes it even harder to make healthy choices,
All
and
right.
so on.
Oh, I see.
It creates this downward spiral that can be tough to break free from.
It makes me think about those times when I'm exhausted and the last thing I want to do is cook a healthy meal or go for a run.
Yeah,
So I end up ordering takeout
right.
and crashing on the couch.
Yeah.
Which probably just perpetuates the cycle.
Exactly. And the source material digs into the specific ways this cycle impacts us.
Real.
For instance, did you know that even being mildly dehydrated can negatively affect your mood and cognitive function?
Wow.
It's subtle, but those seemingly small things add up over time.
That's a great point. I know I've definitely felt that brain fog when I haven't had enough water.
Sure.
It makes decision-making a nightmare.
And that's just one example. The research emphasizes that when we're not taking care of our physical health, it can lead to this persistent fatigue that makes everything feel like an uphill battle.
It's like trying to function on a half-charged battery, right?
Right.
You're just not operating at your full potential.
Precisely. And as you mentioned, it impacts your motivation too. Even activities you normally enjoy can feel like a chore when you're constantly drained.
And it's not just about feeling tired, is it? The source material also talks about how this can affect our mood and even our relationships.
Absolutely. When our bodies are under strain, it's like our internal stress response is constantly activated.
Uh-huh.
This can lead to increased irritability and make it harder to regulate emotions effectively.
So little things that might not normally bother us suddenly feel much more frustrating.
Exactly. And this can have a ripple effect on our interactions with others.
Oh.
We might become short-tempered with loved ones or withdraw from social situations altogether,
Right.
which, as you can imagine, only exacerbates feelings of unhappiness.
It's interesting because the research also dives into the impact of specific dietary choices on our
Right.
mental well-being.
Yeah.
For instance, did you know that studies have shown a link between a diet high in processed foods
Yeah.
and an increased risk of depression?
It's fascinating, isn't it? And while more research is always being done, it seems there's a growing body of evidence suggesting that what we eat has a direct impact on how we feel,
Wow.
both physically and emotionally.
So it's not just about calories in, calories out. It's about nourishing our bodies with the nutrients they need to function optimally.
Mm.
It reminds me of a study mentioned in the source material,
Mhm.
where participants who increased their intake of omega-3 fatty acids reported significant improvements in their mood and cognitive function.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
And it highlights how even seemingly small dietary tweaks can make a difference. Now let's talk about sleep.
Oh.
This is where the vicious cycle really comes into play.
I was just thinking that if we're constantly exhausted and stressed from neglecting our physical health,
Right.
it's bound to affect our sleep.
Precisely. The research goes beyond the obvious fatigue and highlights some less obvious, but incredibly impactful effects of sleep deprivation.
I'm curious to hear more about these less obvious effects. What stood out to you?
Well, one of the most compelling points is the impact on our emotional stability.
Okay.
You see, when we're sleep deprived, our brains are less equipped to regulate emotions. The amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for processing emotions, right,
Becomes more reactive, while the prefrontal cortex, which helps us control our impulses and make rational decisions, isn't functioning at its best.
so it's like our emotional control panel is malfunctioning.
That's a great way to put it. And this can manifest in a number of ways. We might find ourselves overreacting to situations,
Yeah.
having more frequent mood swings,
Right.
or experiencing a heightened sense of anxiety.
And I imagine this emotional roller coaster makes it incredibly challenging to experience genuine happiness.
It certainly makes it more difficult. The research suggests that even a single night of inadequate sleep can have a measurable impact on our mood and emotional well-being.
Wow.
Imagine the cumulative effects over time.
That's a bit unsettling, to be honest. I'm now realizing how much I've probably downplayed the importance of sleep in the past.
It's a common oversight, and it's understandable given our fast-paced culture.
Yeah.
But the research makes a compelling case for prioritizing sleep as a cornerstone of both physical and mental health. And it's not just about feeling grumpy or having a bad day.
No.
The source material also highlights the impact of sleep deprivation on our cognitive abilities.
That's right. Sleep deprivation can significantly impair our attention span, memory recall, and decision-making abilities. It's as if we're operating with a mental fog.
Which, again, probably just makes it harder to make healthy choices
Yeah,
and break free from that vicious cycle we talked about.
you're catching on quickly. And this brings us to the crucial question.
Okay.
How do we break this cycle and create a more solid foundation for happiness?
That's what I'm eager to explore. The good news is that the research provides practical strategies to improve both our physical health and sleep, which, as we've discussed, are so interconnected with our emotional well-being.
One of the most powerful tools we have is, perhaps surprisingly, something many people put off.
Oh.
Movement.
Mm-hmm.
The research dives into how regular physical activity acts like a reset button,
Right.
both physically and mentally.
That makes sense to me. I always feel so much better after a good workout, even if I was dragging myself to the gym beforehand.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people get intimidated by the idea of exercise.
It's a common misconception that you need to be training for a marathon to reap the benefits.
Right.
The source material actually points to a fascinating study where participants who engaged in just 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise 3 times a week experienced significant improvements in their mood and sleep quality.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
So it's not about pushing ourselves to the limit.
No.
It's about finding ways to move our bodies consistently that we actually enjoy.
Exactly. And the benefits go beyond just mood and sleep.
Really?
Regular physical activity helps regulate cortisol,
Right.
the stress hormone we mentioned earlier,
Right.
which in turn can have a positive impact on our emotional resilience and overall well-being.
So by managing stress through movement, we're actually creating a more positive internal environment for happiness to thrive.
Precisely. And speaking of creating a positive internal environment, the research also emphasizes the importance of what we fuel our bodies with.
You're talking about nutrition, right?
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by the connection between what we eat and how we feel.
It's a fascinating field, and this source dives into some specifics.
Right.
Did you know that a lack of magnesium, a mineral found in foods like leafy greens and nuts, can actually contribute to feelings of anxiety and insomnia?
That's really interesting. I've heard about magnesium before, but I never realized it could have such a profound impact on our mental state.
It's a great example of how those seemingly small dietary deficiencies can add up over time
Right.
and contribute to that vicious cycle we discussed. The research emphasizes the importance of prioritizing nutrient-dense foods like fruits, vegetables, and lean protein
Yeah.
while limiting processed foods, sugar, and excessive caffeine.
So it's not just about counting calories.
No.
It's about making sure those calories are packed with the nutrients our bodies and minds need to thrive.
Exactly. And this leads us to another key element in breaking free from that downward spiral,
Oh.
establishing a consistent sleep schedule.
This is something I've always struggled with.
Oh.
I tend to stay up late and then hit snooze multiple times in the morning.
Hmm.
But I'm starting to understand just how crucial sleep is for everything.
It's not just about feeling rested, it's about giving our bodies the time they need to repair and rejuvenate,
Right.
both physically and mentally.
The source material mentions something called sleep debt. What exactly is that?
It's a fascinating concept. Sleep debt refers to the cumulative effect of not getting enough sleep over time. It's like carrying a heavy backpack that gets heavier with each night of inadequate sleep.
Okay.
Even if you feel like you can function on less sleep, that debt can have a significant impact on your mood, cognitive function,
Right.
and even your physical health in the long run.
Wow. I never thought of it that way. It's like we're constantly borrowing from our future well-being.
That's a great analogy. And one of the best ways to start paying down that sleep debt is by creating a consistent sleep schedule.
So going to bed and waking up around the same time each day,
Yes.
even on weekends.
Exactly. This helps regulate your circadian rhythm, which is basically your internal biological clock
Yeah.
that governs your sleep-wake cycle. When your circadian rhythm is in sync, you're more likely to fall asleep easily, stay asleep throughout the night,
Yeah.
and wake up feeling refreshed.
It sounds so simple, yet it's something I've never been able to master.
What are some tips for establishing a consistent sleep schedule when you're used to erratic sleep patterns?
It's about making gradual adjustments
Okay.
rather than trying to overhaul your routine overnight. Start by moving your bedtime and wake-up time by 15 minutes each day until you reach your desired schedule.
Okay.
Also, creating a relaxing bedtime routine
Uh-huh.
can signal to your body that it's time to wind down.
What kind of things would you recommend for a bedtime routine? It's about finding what works for you. It might include taking a warm bath, reading a book, listening to calming music,
Yeah.
or practicing some gentle stretches.
And avoiding screens for at least an hour before bed.
Yes.
I'm definitely guilty of scrolling through social media late at night.
It's a common habit in today's digital age. But the blue light emitted from electronic devices can interfere with melatonin production, a hormone that regulates sleep. Dimming the lights in the evening and creating a screen-free sanctuary in your bedroom can make a world of difference.
It's interesting how all these elements are interconnected.
Yeah.
Our sleep habits,
Right.
our diet, our physical activity levels,
Yeah.
they all play a role in creating a foundation for happiness. The source also delves into the power of mindfulness for managing stress, which, as we've discussed, is a major contributor to that vicious cycle.
Mindfulness practices like meditation and deep breathing can be incredibly effective in calming the nervous system and promoting a sense of inner peace. It's like training your mind to become more aware of the present moment without judgment.
I've tried meditation before, but I always found it difficult to quiet my mind.
Sure.
Do you have any tips for beginners?
It's a practice, just like any other skill. Don't get discouraged if your mind wanders. It's perfectly normal. The key is to gently guide your attention back to your breath or whatever anchor you're using.
Right.
Even a few minutes of daily meditation can make a difference. The source actually mentions a study where participants who practiced mindfulness for just 10 minutes a day for 8 weeks reported significant reductions in stress, anxiety, and sleep disturbances.
That's impressive. I'm starting to see how even small, consistent efforts can have a big impact over time.
Yeah,
It's not about being perfect. It's about making gradual changes that support our well-being.
exactly. And there's one more piece of the puzzle that the source highlights as crucial for happiness, our social connections. Yes, the human connection element. I've definitely noticed that when I'm feeling isolated or lonely,
Right.
it's much harder to feel happy.
The research emphasizes that strong social connections are essential for our emotional well-being. Spending quality time with loved ones, nurturing our relationships, and engaging in activities that bring us joy and connect us with others
Yeah.
all contribute to a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives.
It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life and neglect our social needs.
Right.
But it sounds like prioritizing those connections is just as important as taking care of our physical health and sleep.
Absolutely. The research even points to studies that have shown a link between social isolation and an increased risk of depression, anxiety, and even heart disease.
It's a reminder that we're not meant to go through life alone. We thrive when we feel connected to others and have a sense of belonging.
Well said. And this brings us to the long-term benefits of prioritizing all these elements. I'm ready to hear about the long game.
Right.
What kind of lasting positive changes can we expect to see when we invest in our physical health, sleep, and social well-being?
Imagine waking up each morning feeling energized and excited to start the day.
Okay.
You're not just surviving, you're thriving.
Right.
Your immune system is stronger,
Yeah.
you're thinking more clearly,
Yeah.
and you're able to navigate challenges with greater resilience and a more positive outlook.
That sounds amazing. Like a complete transformation, not just physically,
Right.
but mentally and emotionally as well. It paints a picture of a life where happiness isn't some elusive goal,
Right.
but rather a natural byproduct of taking care of ourselves holistically.
Exactly. And it's not just about fleeting moments of happiness.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating a deeper sense of well-being
Right.
that permeates all areas of your life. The research suggests that when you prioritize your physical health, sleep, and social connections, you're essentially creating a buffer against stress and negativity.
Right.
You're better equipped to handle challenges,
Yeah.
bounce back from setbacks, and experience a greater sense of contentment overall.
So it's like we're building up our reserves of resilience and positivity.
That's a great way to put it. And this leads to some fascinating findings about the long-term impact of these healthy habits. For example, the source mentions a study that followed participants over a period of 10 years.
Wow.
Those who consistently prioritized physical activity, healthy eating and quality sleep
Uh-huh.
were significantly less likely to experience chronic diseases like heart disease,
Right.
type 2 diabetes, and even certain types of cancer.
That's incredible. It really highlights the interconnectedness of our physical and mental health.
Yes.
It's not just about feeling good in the moment.
Right.
It's about setting ourselves up for a healthier and happier future.
Precisely. And there's another interesting point the research brings up.
Mm.
It seems that prioritizing these healthy habits can actually have a positive impact on our cognitive function as we age. Studies have shown that people who maintain a healthy lifestyle are less likely to experience cognitive decline
Right.
and are more likely to maintain sharp mental acuity well into their later years.
So it's like we're investing in our future brain power.
Exactly. And that's something I think we can all get behind.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to stay mentally sharp and engaged throughout their lives?
It's truly inspiring to see how these seemingly simple choices can have such a profound impact on our long-term well-being. It makes me think about the ripple effect of positive change.
That's a powerful concept.
Right.
It's like throwing a pebble into a pond and watching the ripples spread outwards.
Okay.
When you make a positive change in one area of your life, it often creates a cascade of positive effects in other areas as well.
I've definitely experienced that myself.
Oh.
When I started prioritizing my sleep, I noticed that I had more energy throughout the day, which made it easier to make healthier food choices and stick to my exercise routine.
Right.
It became this upward spiral of positive reinforcement.
That's a perfect example. And it highlights the importance of focusing on progress, not perfection. Even small changes can make a big difference over time,
Right.
especially when those changes are aligned with your values and your vision for a happy and fulfilling life.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've covered so much ground today. From the science behind the connection between physical health, sleep, and happiness,
Yeah.
to the practical strategies we can implement to create a more solid foundation for well-being.
And what's really exciting is that you've already taken the first step by exploring this topic and seeking out this information. That shows a commitment to your well-being.
Yeah.
And that's truly commendable.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the idea of that vicious cycle. Research does a great job of illustrating how neglecting our health can create this downward spiral. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how we can start reversing that cycle and creating a more positive upward spiral instead.
That's a great question, and it's something the research addresses specifically. One of the key takeaways is the importance of starting small
Okay.
and focusing on one or two key areas at a time.
Uh-huh.
Trying to overhaul your entire lifestyle overnight is
Yeah.
often overwhelming and unsustainable. Instead, identify one or two habits you want to improve
Right.
and create a plan for incorporating them into your daily routine.
So, for instance, if someone's struggling with sleep,
Yeah.
they might start by establishing a consistent bedtime routine
Uh-huh.
and gradually adjusting their sleep schedule.
Exactly. And as they start experiencing the benefits of better sleep, they might find that they have more energy to make healthier food choices
Right.
or incorporate some movement into their day.
Yeah.
It becomes the self-reinforcing cycle of positive change.
And it's important to be patient and kind to ourselves throughout the process, right?
Absolutely.
Change takes time, and there will inevitably be setbacks along the way.
It's not about striving for perfection, but rather about making consistent progress. Celebrate your successes, learn from your challenges, and remember that every small step you take is a step in the right direction.
This has been an incredibly empowering conversation. It's given me a renewed sense of hope and a clear understanding of the steps I can take to create a happier and healthier life.
And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question based on everything we've discussed today.
Okay.
If you could make one small change in your life today to support your physical health, sleep, or social well-being, what would it be? And what positive ripple effects do you imagine it might create in other areas of your life?
That's a wonderful question to ponder. We encourage you to reflect on that and consider taking that first step, however small it may seem.
Right. Remember, even the tiniest pebble can create ripples that extend far beyond its initial point of impact. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thank you for joining us as we explored the fascinating connection between physical health, sleep, and happiness. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel inspired to prioritize your well-being. Until next time, remember that you have the power to create a life filled with joy, vitality, and a deep sense of fulfillment.